The Fantasy Skirmisher.
Hey everyone, this is Nevin and welcome back to the Fantasy Skirmisher. In my last video I had reviewed Divine Right, that was published in 1979, and now we're going to review a game that was published in 2024 and was inspired by this game, and that is Burning Banners, designed by Christopher Moeller, as well as all the fantastic artwork that's in here. Christopher Moeller may be a name that sounds familiar to you, and that's because he is kind of like the Renaissance man of geek culture. He has been involved in comic books, and he's done art for World of Warcraft, as well as Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons, and countless other games. And now he designed his own game, Burning Banners, Rage of the Witch King. The kingdoms of Kalar must unite or perish as the army of the night launches its long-planned war of vengeance. So in this fantasy epic war game, hex encounter war game, you've got 6 unique factions. You've got the vampiric army of the night, the marauding orc tribes, the swarming mountain goblins, the mighty Eastern Empire, the northern raiders of the Fjordland, and the dwarven kingdoms of the Oathborn. And each faction plays a little bit differently, so they're kind of asymmetric. And this is a heavy box loaded with lots of goodness here. And you can see at the back of the box here, it's very well done. And like war games, it has a little list about complexity, solitaire, suitability, things like that. So this is considered in the wargaming world a low to medium game, which I agree with. The time scale is 4 seasons per year, so 1 turn is 1 season. You have a map scale of 1 Imperial League per hex, whatever that is. That's kind of cool. Unit scale are armies and individual heroes. Plays from 2 to 6 players, but solitaire suitability is marked as medium. I would agree with that. It plays well solitaire, but this game does have cards, and so you know what the other hands are. And average time is 1+ hours. That depends on the scenario, of which there are 29 scenarios. So, and you can link them to form a campaign. But let's take a quick look. I've already done an unboxing of this, so we're not going to go through all the components. But I do want to show you how I've kind of got this organized, since there's a lot of stuff here. Now, one thing I do is I put this in a box on a shelf. This is obviously not needed for the game. This is just art. See, they're not faction cards, but it would have been kind of cool if they were, right? And then we've got the player boards, and they're recessed, so they're very nice quality. Put your tokens here, stack your units here, put your heroes here. If there's any special things, like the dwarves have the Lost City of Kazud, which they could place. Then faction special abilities, and if they control a monster, you just take a token from your player aid, for your player mat that is, and put it on that monster. So we've gone for each faction. And here's what I wanted to show, and I think others I've seen are doing something similar, and that is I've got this organized where each faction has its own little box with all their units and tokens and cards that they need to play the game. And so that way it's really easy just to take 2 or more out depending on the scenario, give it to the players, and you're almost ready to go. And then I've got separate cards here for treasures and spells. Here's the Army of the Night. And then I just kind of bag the rest up, and it fits in the box rather nicely. So the game comes with 2 player aids, and this is fantastic, works great. I wish it came with more than 2, since you can have up to 6 players. And then I printed out some errata. So yeah, there are some clarifications to the rule book. I think they have a living rule book on the company's website where they update it in real time. So if there's another printing that's going to come out, perhaps you'll be able to get a copy of the most updated rules, but really this is nothing terrible. And it is about, as you can see here, 2.5 pages. But I really didn't have to refer to this. And then you got a couple other mats, magic display board, and season display. And you've got the campaign book. The first couple pages explains how to read the different scenarios, or campaigns as it's called, so that way you know how to set it up. So you got two introductory, got an introductory campaign here, then campaign 1, campaign 2, and it's got the years and kind of the background information. So you could see that there are a lot of scenarios here. Quite a few. Some use one map, some others use 2, like right here, because there are 4 maps in this game. And then of course you've got the rule book. The rule book is 57 pages. And so, you know, when I first unboxed this game, I thought, wow, this is going to be a complicated game. There's a thick rule book, thick campaign book. You got the Traveler's Guide, and the Traveler's Guide is just lore, which is very cool. But this is not a complex game at all. And then, of course, you got the 4 maps here, which we'll take a look at some of that. But the artwork is amazing. All right, so let me kind of set this game up, and we'll start talking about how it plays. Let's first take a look at the map. As you can see, it is massive. So it's 4 separate mounted maps. When you put them together, it's 44 inches long and 34 inches wide. So you would need a large table if you were going to play a scenario that used all 4 maps. Meanwhile, snow is in the forecast. And we'll just do a quick flyover. So on the bottom right, we have the Fields of Ash. And then we have the Wildlands. And on the top left is the Broken Coast map. And then finally we have the Imperial Heartland. And as you can see, just the artwork is stunning. All right, here we have the table set up to play a campaign. Campaign 6 specifically. I did my builds, and we'll talk about this in just a second. Got the display boards out for both factions. And we've got the season display. And these books, this is how spells and spell replenishing is handled. So either one of these books is a glyph or it's a churn, meaning just the mana, I guess for lack of a better term, is a little weakened. And so instead of studying and replenishing up to 3 different disciplines, if you drew a churn, you could only study 1 discipline. So that's a way you would replenish your spells, and we'll talk about that when we go over a sample game turn. Then we've got the magic card display, so you've got the spells, treasures, and the discard pile for the spells, but the discard pile here is for the faction blessings. And you can see here's the blessings for both factions. So blessings are faction-specific spells. Each faction, shares this common deck here. And the way to get treasures is to defeat a monster on the board. So that's one way you can get some really cool items, as well as gain some additional gold. But collectively, those 3 types of cards, blessing, spells, and treasure, are considered magic. When choosing a scenario, like we did here, I see that Campaign 6, the Spire of the Moon, it's a 2-player scenario where you've got the Invader, which is the Army of the Night, and the Resistance, or the Defenders, the Dwarves, the Oathborn, and then you have the Postures. So all the settlements on the board could be hostile, they could be welcoming or allied. And you can see here for the Invaders of the Night, well, neutral and Fjordland settlements on the map are hostile to the Invader, the Army of the Night, while welcoming and allied for the Dwarves. Then the arcane study, this is how many glyphs and churn tokens that you would mix together to put on the board here. And then which map is in play, the wildlands, the turn order. As you can see, this kind of matches the turn order here. And then you would have the duration. So the duration here is 5 turns, start date year 1 summer, and ends in year 2 autumn. So we've got the season turn marker here as you move along. And then this would be the last turn here, campaign end. Now each faction comes with a card, an information card, which has their special abilities. So you can see here the place coven ability. In combat, you gain 1 white die or light dice when attacking a settlement with a coven. And the coven markers are on the reverse side of the control markers. And also hiding in shadows. So this you roll to see if a coven gets eliminated or stays hidden when an enemy unit ends its activation in the settlement with the coven. And then support. Covens give 1 gold per turn and allow feral armies in adjacent wilderness hexes to recover and build. Feral armies have that little marker there. And then, of course, you've got the dwarves with their special abilities. So you have miners. They're very weak troop type. But if you put them in a mine for an action, what they can do is generate 1 gold, which is great. And also dwarves are mountaineers. So the Oathborn units pay 1 movement point to enter mountain hexes, except for siege engines, which they have 1 that could be built. And so they can move quicker through the mountains because other units, it would cost 2 movement points as opposed to 1 for the dwarves. Back to the scenario. Each scenario has like just historical information on what's happening. And so this is the first scenario where the Army of the Night makes its move in the year 588. And then you've got the setup first, got the Oathborn. Their starting income is 6, so we have that here. And then we've got the opening builds, 10 gold, 1 hero. And when you draw a hero, these are randomly shuffled, the stack of heroes. And you can see that these heroes cost 3 gold. And what you do is you just reveal 1. So the Oathborn have a Yeti. Then you draw the Yeti card, and you can see that this has Lore of the Ancients. And this is a cantrip symbol, meaning that the ability can be used on another player's turn. So once per combat, when you're using battle magic, you draw a spell, then discard another spell. So this will help you cycle through spells that maybe you want. I assume that would be more helpful if you knew what all those spells are. But we'll see. All right. Now, with my income, these are the costs in the top left-hand corner. Got the diamonds with the number. That's the gold or coins, how much it costs. And I spent 9 of the 10, so I got 1 coin left, plus my hero, which I will be able to place on the board. And then for the Army of the Night, it's 6 gold, 1 coven, and 1 hero, which they drew Bella here. And Bella, she can fly. And from what I've seen, all heroes have this star type symbol. That means they're able to cast magic. So that's how you're able to get magic and use it in the game. And then they spent all of theirs. We got a feral army pack, which is a wolf pack. And Bella, who's stacked on top, her ability is that she is an animal lover, and she gains 1 white die when stacked with the feral army. So the light and heavy dice, there's 2 dice in the game. The white die is a D6. The black heavy die is a D8, so they're more effective in combat. And we are ready to set these units on the map here, and we'll go over some of the map features. So we have the map set up utilizing the initial builds based on the available money we had at the beginning of the scenario. And also I just want to bring to your attention that this game comes with optional quick start setup cards, which covers the introductory scenario and the first 6 campaigns, including Spire of the Moon. So you would use this if you just want to quickly get everything on the board, not worry about what you're going to build, where to place it. This already is done for you. And the final part of setup, of course, we need to draw our hand of spells. 3 spells and 1 blessing, which are our full hand here. And so for the blessing for the Army of the Night, it does not require a spellcaster, as that would be indicated here. It's a cantrip, which means it could be played out of turn, so you can play it on your opponent's turn. Then you just follow the text. This is Knives in the Dark. Play when hiding in shadows. Roll 2 heavy dice, 2 of these. Strike against enemy units in the Coven's hex. If all are eliminated, flip the Coven to a control marker, otherwise remove the Coven. And then we've got Earthquake, and some have a range. In fact, these all have ranges, 3 to 5, it's a strike. And then you got Battle Magic, you play during combat, range of 3. And so it has a minus light die. So Battle Magic, target unit, monster, or garrison reduces its combat rating by 1 light dice. And then we have Summon Morag, also Battle Magic, and it has a range of 5. And that looks like a nice one there. Target unit, monster, or garrison in or adjacent to a swamp hex. It's pretty limited. A swamp hex gains 2 heavy dice. All right, and then we have the Oathborns. So Oathborn is a blessing here. Play after performing a mining action. Roll 1d6. If you roll a 1, eliminate the miner. 2 to 5, no effect. You may return this card to hand instead of discarding it. Or 6, gain 2 gold and an artifact. And then we've got the 3 spells here. All require a mage or a spellcaster. Before we look at the different terrain types on the map, let's take a look at the abilities and characteristics of the different types of units. And we'll start with this one as an example, Swarm of Rats. And you can see it costs 1. It has a little dark symbol on the bottom of the triangle there, and that shows it's a feral unit. What that means is that feral units, they can't loot. They may remove but not place control markers. Hold on here. There we go. They do not gain gold or treasure when they defeat a monster, and they can't use ship movement. And their abilities change a little bit if a feral unit has a hero on it. And we'll go over that. On the bottom left, if there's a circle with a symbol, that shows different types of abilities that the units may have. And in this case, this symbol means that this unit has stealth. And stealth units can do a type of combat called ambush. So think of it in Magic the Gathering terms as kind of like a first strike, right? And there's nothing about the other unit can do to defend themselves. All right, and we will cover that in combat. On the bottom right-hand side of all units, come on, there you go, is the movement allowance. And the combat, how many dice they roll in combat, will have 1 or more bars, either black or white. And that just shows what type of dice, light or heavy dice, that are rolled in combat. And we'll go over that as well. All right, so what do we have next here? Okay, we've got another feral unit. And this one has flying, has a movement allowance of 5, as you can see. Rolls 3 light dice in combat. And flying units, well, you could go over enemy occupied hexes. You can attack across sea hex sides. You may enter any terrain type on the map except for layer hexes, just ignoring the terrain costs. So they're pretty handy for mobility. And then let's take a look here, see what else we have. Oh, one thing that the swimmer rats have, as well as this vengeful ghost, if this got this gray tear color on the side, it means it's a fragile unit. So it only has one step in combat. So if it takes a hit, it is gone, unlike a regular unit, which has 2 steps. So if it took a hit here, then this becomes fragile, as you can see. So they're not very survivable in combat. All right, now what else do we have here? Okay, let's take a look at these ghouls. So the ghouls, as you can see here, they have this blood drop symbol, and that allows them to regenerate. And so they could move from a fragile state and regenerate to normal size, which is very handy for them, and it's done as a free action. So it doesn't require a recovering type action to rebuild themselves. And let's see here. So I've got a siege engine here. And so this is a flying siege engine. Siege engines have these red fortress symbols right here. And a siege engine allows an attacking unit to negate the bonus defense that fortifications have. And we'll talk about that when we look at the terrain. And I think I've got this all covered here. Oh, there's one more I think we need to cover, and that is large units. So if you notice this storm giant, well, one, you'll see that he's pretty powerful in combat, right? 6 dice, 3 heavy, 3 light. But you notice behind his movement allowance is this black hexagon. And that shows that he is a huge unit. And so when a huge army settles a settlement, it is razed to the ground. So, you don't occupy it, you don't collect income on it. It's pretty much, it's destroyed. And that's what these raised markers are for. And so that is the different characteristics of the combat units. So let's move on to the map. There's 3 types of wilderness terrain. So you have forest, mountains, and swamp. Collectively, they are wilderness terrain. Cost 1 extra movement point to enter and move through. Also, they provide 1 bonus light die if you're defending in a wilderness terrain from attack. The maps have layers. This is where the monsters reside. So we have sea monsters that would go in a place like this if attacked, or like this, the land ones, if attacked. So if a unit does attack, you randomly choose a monster, set it down, and then you'll know what it is. In this case, it's a giant spider that will ambush you. You get 1 gold, and it rolls only 1 light die in combat. And if you defeated it, besides the gold, you get a treasure. And we'll go over that. We have sea hexes, coastal hexes, minor rivers that cost an additional movement to cross, major rivers that cost 2. We have road hexes. And so if you start and stop on a road hex, you get 1 extra movement point. And that includes the bridges as well, of course. And then we have settlements. And settlements have banners, as you could see here. So we've got, if there's no faction symbol on a settlement, like these 3 along the coast, they are neutral. And you'll see that some of these settlements have got symbols. So you can see this one is a port, and it's a fortified, so a fortified port. This one is not fortified. Here you got a port town here. And then this is the capital. This is the Spire of the Moon. And so this is basically the capital city. That's the red star of the Army of the Night. It's in the mountains, and it is fortified. And you can see the faction right here. That's the Army of the Night faction symbol. And then this is the Oathborn symbols here, as you can see up here as well. And also, some mountainous locations have mines, and mines can be mined by Oathborn miners. So as an action, they could mine and collect 1 gold to increase your treasury to be able to buy more units. And you can see you've got a Fjordland village here with the little thatched homes, which are allied to the Oathborn. And I think I've covered all the major terrain types. And the terrain effects are summarized very nicely on the back side of the reference card. Now let's go over the turn sequence, which begins with the income phase. So on the turn track, you can see that the Army of the Night goes first. And in the income phase, if you have a siege engine, you can choose to disband it if you'd like. Also, the Army of the Night could attempt to place a coven during the income step. And also, you could see that right here, we're at 4 gold pieces, or whatever you want to call them. And so we collect that and put it in the Army of the Knight's token area. All right, so let's go ahead and attempt to place that coven. To place a coven, you need to roll a die to see if it's successful. A success is a 5 or a 6, but there are some modifiers. As you can see here, you get +1 if it's in wilderness, which it is not, or if the town is unfortified, which it is, and also unoccupied, which it is. So I'm going to get +2 to my die roll. I rolled a 6, so it was successful to begin with. And so with it +2, I rolled a total of 8. So the coven is placed in Shaded Vale at the bottom of the map here. Since we successfully placed a coven, the income level goes from 4 to 5 on the income track. At the start of the activation phase, what you're supposed to do is ready your units, meaning that units that were activated the previous turn and are considered finished are now readied. So what a finished unit looks like, when you complete an activation, you're supposed to turn it at an angle like this, and then at the beginning of your next activation phase, you ready the unit. What I do is just put little red discs on it to indicate that I had activated the units, and when I'm done with my turn, I take them off. For me, it's just cleaner and simpler. Also, in your activation phase, you can build units with any gold that you have, and you can build them in friendly settlements. So for the Army of the Night, that would be the Spire of the Moon. If you build a unit in the Spire of the Moon, it is considered readied, and you could use it that turn you build it. Now, if you build a unit, which you can, adjacent to a friendly settlement, then it is considered finished. Or what I would do is, of course, put a little red disc on there, indicating it's done until the next turn. And you can sequence your builds at any time. So, for example, say this unit's here, I can activate this unit, move it, so that way I could build in the settlement, so I could also activate that built unit. Then I can move it, so on and so forth. And so that way you could really get your forces, your armies going. And for the Army of the Night, you can build feral armies adjacent to settlements that have a coven in it, and you could build them in wilderness areas, such as a swarm of rats, or the wolves, things like that. Also, at the beginning of your activation phase, if you have any heroes that have a lock ability, what you could do is you can ready them again or unlock them. So think of it like Magic the Gathering. So if you use this ability, you would lock or tap that hero, and then at the beginning of your next turn, you can unlock it or untap it, right? So that's the other thing you could do. But let's get on with our game. Now let's get back to our Army of the Night turn. It's their activation phase. They've placed a coven. And let's go ahead and do a build. So what we're going to do is, of our 4 gold coins, we are going to spend 2 on these ghouls here. And we are going to place them, the ghoul army, right here on the spire of the moon. So that way they're going to enter play ready so they can activate. And they have a movement of 1. So hey, this looks great. They're going to move right next to Mangut, and they're going to attack. And we're not going to use any spells or anything for this. The ghouls get 1 light and 1 heavy die. And each unoccupied settlement has an intrinsic defense value of 1 light die. That just represents the garrison that are in these unoccupied settlements. So we're going to roll the dice. So the ghouls are going to roll first. And they rolled, wow, really well, a 5 and a 7. And on a heavy dice, if you roll a 7 or an 8, that is a critical hit. And what you would do in that case is you'd roll an additional light die and confirm it. If you had rolled a 5 or 6, meaning a success, then it would have served as an additional success or hit, but that's not the case. So they've got 2 hits, and the settlement rolled a 2, nothing. And so this settlement has been defeated, and the unit that attacked it must move in. And now we're able to collect gold by looting and also place a control marker. Now, when you loot a settlement, you get 2 gold. So we're going to put that on our placemat. So we're back up to 4 gold again. However, if you loot a city, that's double gold. And also the Sashka army, excuse me, which is orcs and goblins, they get 3 gold. They operate a little bit differently. If they control a settlement, they have to pay gold at the beginning of their upkeep, beginning of their turn. And so they get a little bit more gold when they do loot. All right, now with that said, we are done with this unit here. And they control that. Let's move up here. So we've got the Vengeful Ghost. It has a move of 3. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to attack this Oathborn fortified settlement. You can see the fortification. We'll move up a little bit further. There we go. So we have no magic we could play. And actually both our heroes for both the Army of the Night and the Oathborn are kind of on the southern part. So I think we need some more heroes so that way we have more options to be able to cast magic. With that said, we've got 3 light dice. And since it's fortified, we need to roll success of 6, not 5 or 6. So we're going to roll the 3 dice. And we got no successes. Now let's roll for the garrison, who rolled a 4. Also, no success, therefore no hit against this attacking unit. And this unit has completed its action as well. All right, we have 1 more unit left if we decide not to build anything. And I don't know if I mentioned this already, but there's no stacking in this game. They're all single units, with the exception of heroes can stack on a unit, such as Bella here. All right, so Bella gains 1 light die when stacked with a feral army, which she is, the wolf pack. And the wolf pack gains 2 light dice. And they are going to attack the City of the Dead. All right, let me adjust this camera a little bit. All right, now, so they are going to attack whatever's in the City of the Dead. So from the monster pool, we're randomly going to choose a monster. And it is, well, it's a ghost bear. So basically, it's going to be 3 white dice versus 3 white dice. And we need to roll a success and win the combat to be able to defeat this bear. So let's try that now. Our ghost bear also gets 3 light dice. And now is the combat phase. And so how that works is we could use battle magic. So both players may play magic cards, but obviously not in the case of this monster here. But what we're going to do is we're going to play Dust Devil. It's battle magic, and the target unit, monster, or garrison reduces its combat rating by 1 light die. So we are going to do that and remove a die from the monster. And then there's no ambush here, so we don't have to worry about that. Then we're going to resolve the dice rolls. So we are going to roll our dice. Got 1 success, and the ghost bear is going to do the same. Also rolled a success, so it is a tie. Nothing happens. So now the Oathborn will take one of their control markers and put it on the monster. It is now their monster that can attack adjacent units during the Oathborn's turn. And if a faction controls a monster, there is a few things you can do. Attack, of course, is one. You could also have the monster slink away, meaning basically they kind of hide back into the depths of where they came from, and then that space is ready to be attacked again. Or you could pass and do nothing. But right now the Oathborn controls that. Now let's just say that when Bella and her wolf pack attacked this ghost bear, that they were victorious. Well, then the army of the knight would get 3 gold pieces, and they would get a treasure card. So draw 1, and they got a philosopher's stone. While at full strength in spells, discard a spell at random to gain 2 gold. Sweet. So that is how fighting a monster works. Bella is now, action has been taken, and that is all the Army of the Night counters. And I have 4 gold on the playmat here, but I'm going to decide not to use it. I'm going to save, even get some more gold, so that way maybe I could get a siege engine, because there's a couple of territories that have fortresses. They're a little tougher to crack there, and maybe they'll come in handy. Or just get some more powerful units, such as these Vampire Knights. All right, so now, when their turn is done, goes to turn complete. And we're now in the arcane study phase. So what we do is flip this over. And this is a glyph, so we could study 3 different disciplines. So we spent 1 card, and you can discard a spell and get another one during this phase. But I decided I'm going to keep everything. I just want to draw another spell. Black Tide. Place a wandering sea monster in a sea hex adjacent to a coastal hex. Oh, I think that might come in handy. So I'm going to go ahead and hang on to that. And then, of course, the Oathborn can do the same. They could look through if they decide they want to, gain 2 blessed. No, target monster gains 1. These all look pretty good, but they decide they're going to hang on to their cards. It's kind of early in the game. They haven't taken their first turn yet. And so the phase is over for the Army of the Night. And then, of course, now it is the Oathborn's turn, and kind of go through the same thing. When both have taken their turn, the season advances. And you might be wondering what this autumn churn token is. So at the end of summer, moving into autumn, the mana, for lack of a better term, I guess, is just not as strong. So you would put this churn autumn token into the mix shuffle, placing down for the autumn turn. So that's what that is. Now, I do want to talk a little bit more about combat, because there's different types of combat, such as ambushes, and there's strikes that we need to talk about. In addition to regular combat, there's another way that you can attack a unit, and that is called strikes. So a strike may not target a hex that contains a fortified settlement. It is not an opposed roll, So you're just striking a unit and it cannot defend itself by rolling a dice back. So only the player making the strike rolls the dice. Also, train is ignored during a strike, and strikes do a maximum of 1 hit to the target regardless of the number of successes rolled, with the exception of critical hits. So let's go ahead and do an example here. So let's just say we have this Yeti hero and their dwarf Iron Legion moves 2 spaces, and they are going to attack Bella and her wolves using a spell. The spell is Crushing Vines, and it says it's a strike. So 1 light die and 1 heavy dice targets a stacked monster or garrison in or adjacent to a forest hex. And that's the case here because they are in a forest hex. Also, there's an option where after resolving the strike, the Oathborn could discard a spell to strike the same target again. So we've got our 2 dice here, and we're going to roll. And we've got a 7 and a 4. So the 7 is not only a success, but a critical success. And if we get another success, that would count as 2, got a 6. 2 strikes against it. So Bella and the wolves have to take 2 hits. So let's see here. Well, we could remove Bella. That counts as 1 hit, right? Or we could take this wolf pack. That would count as 1 hit. So if we could do that. Or we could leave Bella in place and then remove the wolves, because it would be 1 hit, second hit removes the wolves. Let's go ahead and do that because the Yeti and the dwarves would not be able to advance into the hex after combat and destroy the hero. So that is an example of a strike. Now ambushes, the units that have the ambush ability, they attack just like strikes, with the exception that the defending unit can attack back if they survive. All right, so we mark that unit as finished. And from the next turn, the Oathborn could use the Ghost Bear to attack Bella. So it could do that. That'd be cool. So to summarize, an active unit could perform an additional action after it's completed its movement, and that could be attack, it could pass, perform ship movement, recover, work a mine, or command a monster, meaning I could use this monster and attack Bella. All right, now let's take a look at some of these other action mechanics and see how they work. Obviously, pass is self-explanatory. So let's take a look at ship movement. So for a sea movement example, I removed the ghouls here, and we're going to use a completely different unit here from a different faction, the Empire, and use this Kantari infantry. And let's just say they had did a regular move to this major river hex here. And now they're going to, for their second action, do a sea move. And so if you start in a coastal hex or a major river, you could move 3 hexes by sea movement. So in this case, 1, 2, and 3. Now let's just say they ended up in this port here. So if you start in a port and depart there, you get a movement rating of 6. And so, for example, if they start here, after they can move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 into this other port city, for example. Now the recover action allows you to reinforce a weakened, damaged unit. So for example, after we move back to a welcoming settlement. The Iron Legion here has been wounded. And so what we could do is we could pay 2 gold and then flip them over to their full strength side, and they are recovered. So to do that, they need to return to full strength in or adjacent to an unbesieged welcoming settlement or in a friendly entry hex. Again, friendly entry hex would be like, the orcs and the goblins up there. And miners, Oathborn miners in a mine as an action. Could mine and get 1 coin. All right, to move this along, let's just say that the units have all taken their turns and then have moved into the winter season. And so spring, summer, and autumn collectively is known as a campaign season. That's where units are, moving on the board, fighting, trying to win the game essentially. The winter season, things come to a bit of a halt. And so the first thing you do is you're going to take the autumn churn token and put it on the next year's autumn track. And that happens to be where the campaign ends. And then you have something called Drums in the Deep. So you remove all defeated monsters from the map and you open those layers for exploration. So if this guy was still on the map, he would be removed and it would be open for exploration again. Then each player can sell treasures. So if you hold more than 2 treasures in your hand or owned, you could sell enough of them to bring the total down to 2, because that's your limit. And then you shuffle the decks, so discarded spells and blessings are shuffled back into the respective decks. Treasures sold by players are shuffled back into the treasures deck. And then finally, you advance the season to the next turn, which would be spring here of year 2, and you would start again. So that, in a nutshell, is Burning Banners. I didn't go over all the rules. This is not a tutorial, but I want to give you an idea of how the game plays and how the feel of the game looks, so that way you can make a more informed decision if this is a game you'd be interested in. Now, the game comes in, basic rules and advanced rules, but to be honest, I just go straight for the advanced rules. It's the advanced game. It's not that difficult. Plus, the basic game just has 1 scenario. It's just basically a learning scenario. So yeah, go ahead and play that learning scenario just to make sure you understand the mechanics and before you move to the advanced game. And the advanced game is the fun part of the game, and that's basically just the heroes, the monsters, and the spells and the treasures. And so all the stuff that makes the game really fun. So with that said, the most difficult part of this game is in the basic rules, and that is just the different postures for all these settlements. So I found on Board Game Geek a summary of all the settlements that was created by the designer. And so you can see that settlements could be controlled, they could be friendly, allied, loyal, welcoming, hostile, loyal, neutral, or neutral. And so that could be very confusing as to, well, how do you interact with that settlement, right? So this sheet does summarize all that, and this is, of course, in the rules. And after you play the game, it becomes very intuitive, but you might want to, print this up when you start playing this game. That way you could just quickly reference it and not have to keep burying your nose in the rule book. I really like this game, and expansions are on the way. I think we got elves coming up. I'm not sure about that. Don't quote me, but we don't have elves in the base game here, so I think they'll probably be next. The art, the design, it's really an elegant design once you start playing the game. It's not always noticeable in the rules. It's not like the rules are difficult or anything, but as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, there is some errata. If you have that, you should be fine. But I really enjoyed this game, and my friend who did not like Divine Right, that was inspired by this game, or that inspired this game, really enjoyed this game. It's just really fun moving the units, building units, trying to take your objectives, or whatever they may be, depending on the campaign, the scenario, and casting spells and acquiring magic by defeating monsters. It does have a really big epic feel, especially when you play some of the larger scenarios with more maps. I am hoping to get a 4 or more player game going, again, I would need to have the right people, which I did not have for Divine Right. So that way we could all try this game out, enjoy it, and just experience that epic feel. Can't recommend this enough, but then again, it's conditional because it is a hex and counter war game, and not all modern gamers, meaning people under the age of 50, might appreciate this type of game. But certainly give it a try. If you have a friend, that has this game, please try it. I think you'll really like it, especially if you're into fantasy, gaming, which I think you are because, well, you're watching my channel, which is what it's all about. Enjoying, fantasy in all its gaming forms. All right, guys. Well, thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time on the Fantasy Skirmisher. Bye.